Hello again, everybody. There's been some recent developments as far as the vaccinations and as far as stimulus. So we're just going to go over that for a quick second. If you like what I'm doing, please like, share, and subscribe. I can always use the help and the support, and I really would appreciate it. Uh, but most recently, actually, I will begin with the bill. So most recently, Nancy Pelosi, after declining to accept the bill that was brought to her, was 1.2 or 1.8 trillion dollars. This was before the election. She was playing hardball, right? Because you can't have any sort of win whatsoever in Trump's column, as it were, proverbial column, before going up against him in an election. I myself and a lot of people contend that if COVID hadn't happened, Trump probably would have won hands down. So any sort of relief against the onslaught, the pressure that of just life, of everything that's happened thus far in the last year, they needed to capitalize that as much as possible to optimize, that effect. So we get back. We come now a year later, and they were able to buy. There was a bicameral agreement on the defense bill, which is almost as much as the so-called stimulus bill, with barely any stimulus. As you can see here, $600 stimulus checks. And it's like, you can call it unacceptable, but just but not a year ago, but just 4 or 5 months ago, you were talking about how you would not accept anything this low, and now you're forced to. You have no leverage at this point. And as we saw, McConnell, ended up bucking against this, but we'll go get to that in a second. Nancy Pelosi, and this is yesterday. Nancy Pelosi calls White House's $916 billion offer with $600 stimulus checks unacceptable, and yet you were able to vote, with very little internal opposition to that decision on a defense bill that was almost as much as this bill. Like, why wouldn't you leverage that against what was happening with this bill if they were happening at the same time? Oh boy. The Trump administration offer of a $916 billion stimulus package that would send a $600 check to most Americans but eliminate a $300 per week employment benefit has been called unacceptable by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. In a statement, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said he made the offer to Pelosi late on Tuesday afternoon. Speaker Pelosi and I spoke by 5 p.m. afternoon on behalf of the president. I presented a $916 billion proposal, Mnuchin said in a statement. And before the election, of course, Trump's talking about, well, wow, we can go $2 billion or higher. And at this point, and again, I'm just speaking to the politics of the situation, not necessarily the morality, which is a different argument altogether. But that's the political leverage that could have been, levied against Trump as far as getting what people needed. Yes, it would have looked good for him and quite possibly have gotten him a win for the presidency, but at least people would have support. That's not where their priorities are. Remember, when the Democrats lost seats across the country, Abigail Spanberger, what was it she said? If we keep talking or keep using the same talking points as we did this election, we're going to get fucking crushed. And across the board, anyone who was in support of progressive ballot initiatives, they won. They won handedly. It's an interesting thing when, even in the face of their own mistakes, their own, concerted efforts to do nothing but be corporate stooges, to be money changers, to be wholehearted cronies, plutocratic, cronyistic. You know what I mean? It even in the face of everything, an obvious signal to change direction, they do nothing but blame, shift, and victimize. But you know what? We're going to move along from this, because what's recently happened in the last hour is that Sanders and Josh Hawley from Montana, it looks like, team up to demand vote on second round of stimulus checks. This has just recently happened. Sanders and Hawley are teaming up to push for a vote on a second round of stimulus checks, an unusual alliance that underscores the wide political spectrum that supports more direct payments. The two senators introduced a proposal on Thursday that would provide a second $1,200 stimulus check to individuals who make up to $75,000, mirroring language included in the March CARES Act. Hawley and Sanders are, and by the way, it's because it was introduced in this manner, I feel like it's unlikely to go anywhere, but we'll see. Hawley and Sanders are pledging to try to force a vote either as part of a week-long stopgap bill that needs to pass by Friday night, or the dual government funding and coronavirus relief negotiations that need to be resolved by December 18th. My view is that we want a vote on this one way or another before we leave town, Hawley told reporters. Sanders added in, at the very least. All that Senator Hawley and I are asking is for the exact same language, word for word, that was in the CARES Act. The push by Hawley and Sanders comes as a bipartisan group of senators and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have offered separate coronavirus relief proposals, neither of which include a second round of stimulus checks. The push for stimulus checks divides GOP senators and would beef up the price tag, which could also spark GOP opposition. So the president had introduced, Treasury Secretary, the president, well, the White House, as it were, introduced a bill that was $917 billion, because at this point the Democratic House has no leverage, and it seems like politics are being played above all else. So if there's no leverage, there's no need to go to $2 billion or above, like I was tweeting and talking about. So the GOP senators as well, they seem to have introduced, instead of having a $600 stimulus check, it had no stimulus whatsoever. Wow. The push for stimulus checks divides GOP senators and would beef up the price tag. Several progressives and Hawley have pushed for it to be concluded as part of any agreement that passes before the end of the year. Hawley, and a potential 2024 presidential contender, has also urged President Trump to veto any coronavirus deal that does not include a direct round of payments. Hawley initially said on Thursday morning that he would be introducing a bill. So we'll see how this goes out. Sanders, speaking with reporters, refused to rule that out. But said let's play it by ear. So we'll see how this turns out. I just want to move on to a few quick things about the vaccine. Pfizer, who we've been talking about recently, came out and announced that because there was a case in which a couple of people had severe allergic reactions, because they have severe allergic reactions to things. And I'm not sure what, if they listed what specifically it was in the vaccination that triggered. But we'll see. Britain's UK issues, and that was one of the worries, right? For some of you who are into comic books and stuff like that, Letitia, the actress who plays Shuri in Black Panther, she said something about this. She was just like, there's a history of vaccinations and just having adverse effects, and I just would be weird. I just want to be cautious before, and they gave her flack, and you're an anti-vax and all this crap. And this is what you were talking about. This is what a lot of people were concerned about. When you look at polling data for the nation, and in particular, one that strikes me is for the FDNY, 2/3 of them won't take it within the first year. They want to see, and I think it's a reasonable thing to want to do, is to find out what happens when other people take it. Not everyone is that eager, right, to inject themselves, and that's understandable to have concerns. But I digress. The UK issues anaphylaxis warning on Pfizer vaccine after adverse reactions. People were so up in arms and proponents of getting more Pfizer's vaccination. We haven't seen or heard any data that suggests this for AstraZeneca's or Moderna's. So, Britain's medicine regulator said anyone with a history of anaphylaxis to a medicine or food, any medicine or food, should not get the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccination, giving fuller guidance on an earlier allergy warning about the shot. Starting with the elderly and frontline workers, Britain began mass vaccinating its population on Tuesday, part of a global drive that poses one of the biggest logistical challenges in peacetime history. The Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency said there had been 2 reports of anaphylaxis and one report of a possible allergic reaction since rollout began. Any person with a history of anaphylaxis to a vaccine, medicine, or food should not receive the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Most people will not get anaphylaxis, and the benefits in protecting people against COVID-19 outweigh the risks. You can be completely confident that this vaccine has met the robust standards of the MHRA in safety, quality, and effectiveness. Roll the dice. I mean, thankfully enough, I haven't had anaphylaxis in my life. I'm not allergic to anything. But that's the thing. You just kind of wait and bide your time. Continue to, conduct yourself accordingly. Be safe. Do not endanger yourself or others. And then after an appropriate amount of time, when these issues have been fleshed out and hopefully taken care of, do as thou wilt. We'll get to that in a second. So then this comes to this. Key committee endorses Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccination, paving the way for clearance by FDA and vaccinations in the U.S. to begin. So this is why now you're hearing all of this Pfizer news, because FDA, I believe the FDA cutoff time for their application was coming. So we knew that, and this is happening for a lot of medicines, a lot of vaccinations, a lot of therapeutics. But there's been some interesting news, and so, whatever, we'll just get to this. A committee of leading U.S. vaccine scientists recommended Thursday that the Food and Drug Administration authorize the first COVID-19 vaccine for Americans. The endorsement paves the way for a final decision by the FDA and mass vaccinations to begin within days in thousands of frontline healthcare workers and nursing home residents. After an 8-hour public hearing, the Independent Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee voted 17-4 with one in abstention to recommend the vaccine made by Pfizer and its partner BioNTech called BNT162b2. Members found the benefits of the vaccine outweighed the risks for most people 16 years and older. It's a huge milestone, said Dr. Ofer Levy. Dr. Levy, a pediatric infectious disease expert and the head of the precision vaccine program at Boston Children's Hospital. While some committee members struggled with whether to authorize a vaccine for use in teenagers 16 and 17, Levy, because I used to go to a school and we called it, it doesn't matter, argued that it was important to include children. I'm not an epidemiologist, a virologist. I have a deep interest in biology. But that's hobbyist at best. I'm kind of at a loss, especially given a very stubborn public and the fact that we are between a rock and a hard place with the government the government seems to be inert as far as assistance, because you can't shut everything down, both in ability to go and acquire items, as well as the ability to sustain oneself and work a job and earn wages without any assistance. You can't have it both ways. Well, they're trying to have it. They kind of have had it both ways, and you've seen what's happened. Over 600, 700,000 restaurants in the nation. It's like 100, 125,000 have closed. We've seen, at least in New York City, it's like 40% of the jobs that people have lost are not going to be reacquired. They're going to remain unemployed. There's suicides and addiction are up. Blah, blah, blah. We've heard the unfortunate results of the lockdown, as well as the economic sort of constriction that has occurred. So something's got to give, and if the vaccination is the only way that the government if the vaccination is the only thing that will quell support for government lockdowns, I guess I should say that, right? Because there is support for lockdowns. I don't know. Yeah. Most vaccinations in the world are delivered to children, and their vaccination rates are far higher than adults, he said. To reach the kind of vaccination rates needed to stop widespread transmission of COVID-19 will require minors to be vaccinated at some point, of course. But, I was talking, I think I mentioned this in the other video, this is the fastest vaccination ever conceived in human history. Most vaccinations take 10 years to develop. Again, I'm just a guy who likes to read stuff, but I am weary. And here's the thing: it's I have a mother. My mother's in a nursing home, and so, I would like to see her and all that, and I'd like just in general for the social constipation to end. But let me continue. 16 and 17-year-olds were added to the study this fall, so there was less long-term safety data available for them than adults. Levy, who has treated teens with a complex immune problem caused by COVID-19, said he doesn't see any reason why a 17-year-old would be any different than an 18-year-old. He was comfortable with the FDA's recommendation. Okay. So, okay. It's all I can do is just say, okay, because look, here's the thing, is that he's making an assumption, but unfortunately, because they entered 16 and 17-year-olds into the study later on after it began, they've kind of hit the nail on the head. There's no long-term safety data yet, so we just have to wait and see. And it's like, Creator bless the guinea pig. I don't call them guinea pigs. They're people. Creator bless the people who take it upon themselves, both in the trial studies and afterward, to be the vanguard, to be the spear, the tip of the spear. I'm not the one. I'm not the one. I've had a very unfortunate history with pharmaceutical drugs, not even using them recreationally, using them as prescribed. That's a tale for another video. So lastly, I found this kind of interesting. What's this about? CDC's Redfield told staff to delete email. What? Official tells House watchdog the instruction was revealed during an investigation into the Trump administration's political interference at the public health agency. If you recall, at one point, the White House took control over coronavirus statistics, and like all statistics, like death, coronavirus related, were like funneled directly to the White House and bypassed other agencies. This might relate to that, but Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Robert Redfield instructed staff to delete an email from a Trump political appointee seeking control over the agency's scientific reports on the pandemic. A senior CDC official told congressional investigators this week. Redfield's apparent instruction was revealed in a Monday closed-door interview with the House subcommittee probing the White House's coronavirus response, which includes the Trump administration's interference at the public health agency. It came following an October 8th email sent by Paul Alexander, who was then the scientific advisor to Health and Human Services spokesperson Michael Caputo, aiming to water down the CDC's famed morbidity and mortality weekly reports, right, to align with President Donald Trump's effort to downplay the virus. Yeah. I was instructed to just delete the email. MMWR editor Charlotte Kent told investigators. Kent, who was on investigation when Alexander sent the email, said that she was informed of the request by a colleague who filled in for her, and that she understood the request to be from Redfield. Kent said that she never saw the email herself. I went to look for it after I had been told to delete it, and it was already gone. Representative Jim Clyburn, who houses the House subcommittee on the coronavirus crisis, on Thursday raised concern the episode may be among deliberate efforts by the Trump administration to conceal and destroy evidence of political meddling in the pandemic response. In the letter to Redfield and HHS Secretary Alex Azar, he said that instructing staff to delete documents is unethical and possibly a violation of federal record-keeping requirements, according to a copy shared with Politico. Federal employees have affirmative obligations to preserve documents, and destruction of federal records is potentially illegal. Clyburn warned in the letter, we have to, you don't want to outright make both the accusation of it happening and whether or not, and both of accusation and illegality, because it's one thing to accuse somebody of an action, it's another to say, well, that's also illegal. Because if it's illegal, you should go to jail. So I understand. That doesn't surprise me at all. Then again, I'm not excusing it by saying this, but like every administration has done this. And it's like not every administration has had to deal with the pandemic. It's just you color me atypically numb. Like that's not surprising at all. And you're probably that's I'm sorry, I don't mean to seem cynical. It's just yeah. If you like what I'm doing, like, share, and subscribe. I don't know. Maybe I need a nap or smoke or something. I don't know. And just be well to each other.